The heavy silence of grief had settled into every corner of the mansion like dust, making even the grandest rooms feel suffocating. Marcus Wellington III sat motionless in his study, staring at the framed photograph on his mahogany desk. His late wife Sarah's radiant smile frozen in time, her eyes sparkling with the warmth that once filled their home. 6 months had passed since the cancer took her, yet the pain felt as raw as the day she drew her last breath. The 42-year-old tech mogul, whose innovative software had made him hundreds of millions, now found himself utterly powerless against the crushing weight of loneliness. The sound of gentle humming drifted through the hallway, followed by the soft shuffle of footsteps. Marcus glanced at his watch at 9:30 a.m. Right on schedule. For the past 3 months, Maria Santos had been coming twice a week to clean the sprawling estate. Unlike the previous housekeepers who had quit after encountering his cold indifference and sharp tongue, Maria had stayed. She was a small woman in her 50s with calloused hands and kind eyes, who moved through his house like a whispered prayer, never disturbing him, never asking for anything beyond her modest paycheck. Marcus had barely acknowledged her existence. To him, she was just another service provider, as invisible as the landscapers to the pool maintenance crew. He'd grown accustomed to treating people as transactions, so useful when needed, dismissed when not. It was a survival mechanism he'd developed in the ruthless world of Silicon Valley, but one that had crept into every aspect of his life, leaving him isolated even in his own home. Today felt different, though. The weight of his grief seemed particularly heavy, pressing down on his chest like a physical force. When Maria's gentle knock echoed through the study door, he didn't respond. He couldn't face another day of polite smiles and careful small talk. Instead, he remained perfectly still in his leather chair, closing his eyes and controlling his breathing to appear asleep. The door opened with a whisper, and he heard Maria's soft footsteps on the Persian rug. She began her work with practiced efficiency, the familiar sounds of dusting and organizing filling the space. Marcus had always marveled at how quietly she worked, as if she understood that loud noises might shatter something fragile in this house of mourning. As she moved around the room, he caught the faint scent of lavender soap and something else, yes, something that reminded him of his childhood, of comfort and safety. It was strange how certain smells could transport you back in time, bypassing decades of hardened defenses to touch something vulnerable deep inside. "Poor man," he heard her whisper in accented English, so softly he almost missed it. "He tries so hard to be strong, but his heart is breaking." Marcus felt his chest tighten. She had spoken as if she thought he couldn't hear, her words carrying a tenderness he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death. He forced himself to remain motionless, though every instinct told him to open his eyes. Maria continued her work, and he could hear her moving his papers carefully, respectfully. Most people who entered his study treated it like a museum, afraid to touch anything, but Maria handled his belongings with the same care she might show her own treasured possessions. "You know, Mr. Wellington," she continued in that same gentle whisper, apparently addressing his sleeping form, "my grandmother used to say that grief is just love with nowhere to go. You have so much love inside you, but now it has nowhere to land." Her words hit him like a physical blow. How could this woman, whom he'd barely spoken to beyond giving curt instructions about which rooms to clean, see so clearly into the depths of his pain? He'd spent months perfecting his armor of indifference, yet she had seen right through it. "I lost my husband 7 years ago," Maria continued, her voice growing softer. "Carlos was everything to me. We had 32 years together, raised 4 children, built a life from nothing. When he died, I thought I would die too. The pain was so big, so heavy, I couldn't imagine carrying it." Marcus felt tears beginning to form behind his closed eyelids. Her words painted a picture of love and loss that mirrored his own, yet somehow her gentle strength in the face of such pain made his own grief feel less isolating. "But you know what I learned?" she said, and he could hear her moving to dust the bookshelf near his chair. "The love doesn't die with them, it stays here." She paused, probably touching her heart, "and it wants to grow. It wants to reach other people, to heal other broken places. That's how we unearth them, not by building walls, but by letting that love spill over onto everyone around us." The tears were flowing freely now, though Marcus kept his eyes closed and his breathing steady. This woman, who cleaned his house for barely above minimum wage, who he'd treated as little more than furniture, was offering him wisdom that all his wealth couldn't buy. "Your wife, she was special, wasn't she?" Maria's voice was barely audible now. "I can see it in her photographs. The way she smiled. She had the kind of light that made everyone around her better. I bet she wouldn't want you to dim your own light because hers went out." Marcus nearly broke his pretense then. Sarah had indeed been the light of his life, the one who had softened his hard edges and reminded him that success meant nothing without connection. She had always seen the best in people, always found ways to help those less fortunate. It was Sarah who had insisted they donate anonymously to local food banks. Sarah who had quietly paid medical bills for employees facing financial hardship. "I pray for you sometimes," Maria continued, and Marcus could hear her moving toward the window. "I ask God to help you find your way back to the world. You have so much to give, so much capacity for good. Your wife, she saw that in you. I can tell." The sound of the vacuum starting up ended Maria's quiet monologue, but her words continued to echo in Marcus's mind long after she had finished cleaning and moved on to other parts of the house. He sat in his chair for another hour after she left, her whispered observations turning over and over in his thoughts. For the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus felt something other than numbness or pain. He felt seen, understood by someone he had completely overlooked. This woman, who struggled to make ends meet while sending money back to family in Mexico, who worked multiple jobs to support her adult children's educations, had somehow found the emotional space to care about his suffering. That evening, Marcus did something he hadn't done in months. He called his sister Jennifer. They talked for 2 hours, really talked, about Sarah, about grief, about the future. The next day, he reached out to his estranged business partner, offering to bridge a gap that had formed during his months of isolated bitterness. But most importantly, the following week when Maria arrived for her usual cleaning day, Marcus was waiting for her in the kitchen with 2 cups of coffee and a question that would change both their lives. "Maria, would you tell me about your husband Carlos, and maybe you could tell me how you learned to let love grow again?" As they sat at his kitchen island, sharing stories and tears, Marcus realized that sometimes the most profound wisdom comes not from boardrooms or bank accounts, but from the whispered prayers of someone who has learned to transform their own pain into compassion for others. In that moment, surrounded by the gentle strength of a woman he had almost missed entirely, Marcus began to understand that healing doesn't come from hiding from the world. It comes from opening your heart wide enough to let others in. The mansion was still the same size, but somehow it no longer felt empty. Love, as Maria had said, was finding new places to land.